Hey, what's up? It is Thursday morning, the 13th. I had to look at the date on my computer. Couldn't remember what day it was. The 13th. Well, at least it's not Friday the 13th. It's not that I'm not superstitious, but I do avoid black cats. Anyway, what I wanted to talk about this morning, I've been doing some thinking, which, I know can be very dangerous. But I've been doing some thinking, and I know that a lot of you are in the same boat as me, that this Kiely case, trying to figure out what's going on with it is, shall we say, a little beyond frustrating, especially considering the circumstances that we face right now. Everybody who is involved in a position of authority who could do something about it has bowed out. Let me just say this. There's a lot of things that... Let me adjust my camera here. Yeah, I don't know. Basically, I'm using the camera on the computer because... Anyway. Now, what was I going to say? I don't know. Now, considering the circumstances, there's information, like I said, that I haven't released, which... And people have been asking me, why don't you release it? Well, first of all, there is a possibility that the parties involved would know where the information came from and would be putting the people in danger who gave me the information. Secondly, I don't know that it would do anything to further Kiely's case. And so I don't see taking the risk of putting people in danger, releasing information that may not be, it may or may not be pertinent to Kiely's case. Personally, I don't see how it would do anything as far as forwarding it or finding a resolution. So that being the case, I'm not going to stick my neck out and stick everybody else's neck out and put them on the chopping block, for something that's not even going to make any difference other than satisfy people's curiosity. But let me just say this. Over in that area, my eye itches. Over in that area, there are a lot of political ties to very high-ranking people back in D.C. and other parts of the country. There are ties to the CIA, FBI, of course, ties to a lot of very powerful political organizations. The question that comes to mind, why are they so going out of their way to hide the facts of Kiely's case? And to be honest, I can't really come up with a reason other than further digging into Kiely's case might reveal some other things that they don't want law enforcement or anybody else looking into. Now here's the deal, and I know this for a fact because people have provided me proof. There are very prominent families in that area involved in trafficking of different kinds. Drug trafficking, sex trafficking, slave trafficking, girls taken and forced to be a part of an escort service or escort services, both in California and surrounding states and in Mexico, and possibly other countries as well. There's just too many disappearances over in that area, and I do know that I have been told and shown proof that these families are involved in the trafficking trade. I still feel that Kiely was trafficked. I still don't believe that was her in the vehicle. I really don't. But for today's hypothesis, let's say that it was Kiely in the vehicle. All right? We're going to operate on that principle today, just for argument's sake. Trying to decipher what's going on, trying to go through all the information. And as I've said before, here's my main thing. If you can develop a motive, that is with any, especially a murder, the main thing is to develop a motive. If you can figure out the motive, you can find the killer or killers. So we need to think of a motive. Why would they kill Kiely? Why would they traffic her? That has a million answers. Well, slight exaggeration there, but there are quite a few, which are pretty much obvious, as to why a young girl would be trafficked. But for today's argument, let's just say that it was her in the vehicle that they recovered. And there is the possibility that it was. I didn't have any problem believing it was Kiely in the vehicle until they came out with the autopsy report. And that autopsy report does not match Kiely. There are some things that they put in after the fact that match her, but in the beginning, they did not. It's easy to doctor up a document after the fact, so I go by the original findings, and the original findings, in my estimation, now you may disagree, and that's fine, but my own gut feeling on it is, and my own observation of when the autopsy first came out, that wasn't her. That was somebody else. If indeed it was a real body in the vehicle. So there's another point that could be argued. But as I said, for argument's sake, let's say that it was her in the vehicle. So if it was her in the vehicle, we have to develop a motive. What would be a motive for killing her? Well, I've come up with several. Okay, motive number one. This was just an accident. And by accident, I don't mean that Kiely drove herself into the water. I believe that is an impossibility. I don't believe that for a moment, that she drove herself into the water. When I say accident, I mean something happened at the party and Kiely ended up dead as a result. The kids panicked and tried to hide it. Now, if you remember, at the video of when they were gathering people for the search while she was still missing, Sammy had all kinds of bruises. She had a big bruise, if I can get this in the camera, big bruise on her arm, like right here, which I know from my years in police work, many domestic violence cases that I handle, where the woman is holding off the guy, or if the guy's holding the woman down, has her arms pinned, or some type of struggle ensued, many times you'll see bruises. And where Sammy had that bruise on her arm is extremely indicative of somebody grabbing her arm and trying to hold her off. Sammy also had scratches and bruises on her legs. If you remember, she tried to cover up with paint, which covering up with paint, that's going to make it much less obvious, right? Hello. So anyway, it's obvious that something happened. She had to get those scratches and bruises somehow. You do remember in the AWP video where Doug is in the boat, and he says that people were talking about the fact that Kiely had a fight with bleep, and they bleeped it out. Now, we all know who he was talking about. I mean, that pretty much goes without saying. I can't think of anybody else it would be other than Sammy. But he bleeped it out. And the reason he bleeped it out, I believe, is because we're familiar with the name, and so he didn't want to get himself in trouble, and so or not he, but Jared or whoever edited the video bleeped that out so we couldn't see what Doug said. But I almost guarantee you that he said Sammy Smith. So if there was indeed a struggle and something happened, the kids, the Smiths, a very powerful family over there. Sammy's a very popular girl. Now, what would they get in a fight about? Well, jealousy, basically. Kiely had what Sammy wanted. My understanding is, and this is on good information, that, of course, Kiely went to Mexico with Mags the week before the party. My information tells me, and this is what I've been told, so it's like I'm not accusing anybody of anything. This is what I was told. I was told that Kiely returned home and she and Jagger hooked up. Okay, even though they were no longer boyfriend-girlfriend, apparently they still felt like doing the horizontal hula. So she hooked up with Jagger. Okay, she's also dating Nate Hambrick. Very, of course, Nate, Robert Hambrick is his dad. Very powerful family. They have deep political ties. Okay, so I'm going to say some things without saying it, so just read between the lines. Y'all are familiar enough with what's going on to understand what I'm talking about without me having to come right out and say it. We've been told by witnesses that there's only one family who's powerful enough to control the cops, control the narrative, and cover everything up. So, that's motive number one. Motive number one is there is no motive other than to cover up what happened. Rather than come out and say, yeah, they got in a fight, blah, 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 blah. Kiely ended up injured. He ended up dead. Well, coming out and admitting that is easier said than done, because even if it was an accident, you could still be charged with homicide. It might be negligent homicide. It might be manslaughter, which I'm sure that if she had been charged with anything, it would be the lowest possible, like a manslaughter charge, or she'd be put on probation. The thing that irritates me is the way that Sammy flaunted it after Kiely was found. Her TikTok videos just shows a heartless, cold, uncaring person. And then she tried to make it sound like she and Kiely were getting close as friends. That's horse shit. We both know that. There's no truth to that at all. Sammy spun a story talking to the television people, talking to Tony Dodgeball. Spun a story with a lot of untruths, shall we say. Some of it may have been true. I think the part about him going back to Kiely's car to get alcohol is true, simply because we have other sources that say that Lindsay supplied the alcohol for the party. So it would make sense that the alcohol was in Kiely's car. Interesting, too, and I've said this before, but for those of you who have not heard it, Kiely's grandmother, Lindsay's mom, was working for Child Protective Services. She had retired. Funny thing, after Kiely was found, Grandmama came out of retirement and went back to work. Can you say damage control? Oh, because let me tell you what. You don't think Lindsay could be charged with a bunch of crap? Oh, yeah. Child endangerment, contributing to the delinquency of a minor, and could, in a roundabout way, be charged with negligent homicide. I think that would be a hard one to push, but definitely child endangerment and contributing. And possibly some other things, too, if they really wanted to try hard enough. You know, and to show you how much she cared about Kiely, she didn't even wait up for her. And then the next day, she waited till 5 o'clock to even report her missing. But I can kind of understand that in a way, because a lot of times, until a person has been missing for 24 hours, they won't even let you file a report. So that could be why she waited until 5 o'clock that Saturday. So then we come to the, how do I want to put it, just the scenario with Nick, the service driver. If an accident happened on Friday night, they put her car into the water. Number one, I don't see how it could not have been found. I mean, you'd have to almost try not to find it. You know what I'm saying? So I still don't think the car went in the water Friday night. I don't. And you can't go by the fire cam footage. Anybody that knows anything about those fire cams knows that they don't really take pictures. They basically are, was it ultrasonic or ultraviolet? I don't remember what it is, but basically they just pick up light. And so tail lights look exactly the same as headlights. You can't make heads or tails of anything from that video. They overlaid it, to try to make it, that one dude, can't remember his name, Hugh something, try to, concoct a story based on some overlays which have no relevance, because it just doesn't. I'm not going to get into all that, but let's just say the fire cams don't prove a thing, as I've said the whole time. Now, did Nick see Kiely? He claims he did. He claims he saw Kiely the next day. One of the reasons I think it may have been Kiely was just the way the girl acted. She was trying to get away from the guy. Another scenario that has gone through my mind is that it was Sammy and maybe Jagger. It's interesting that the person who fed me full of crap, if you recall, the videos that I had to take down, one of the first things they said, and I never asked this question. I never prompted this verbiage in any way. The first thing she said, I saw the video footage, Nick's video footage. It's like, okay, which she didn't. She claims she saw it on, God, I can't remember the name of the site now. Planer. It's early. I can't even remember the name of the site. But basically, it's just a site that has court documents. It has no video footage. It has nothing, especially to do with the county case. It's just federal paperwork that you have access to get copies of. That's all it is. So anyway, she claimed that she saw the video, which is a lie, because there's absolutely no way she could have seen it on this website. And the first thing she said was, well, it wasn't Jagger. Okay, if you're going to be lying to me about everything else, why do you even bring that up when I didn't even ask who was it? I hadn't even asked that yet. I did later, but then she wouldn't come right out and say. She just said it wasn't Jagger. So, what does that tell me? Well, there was an agenda for everything that was said to me. There was an agenda for all the lies that were fed to me by this person. So, logic dictates the statement, it wasn't Jagger, was a lie. Nick said he was 100% sure that it was Kiely. Okay? He said he was 100% sure. Now, Sammy and Kiely don't look anything alike. So if it was Sammy, why did she act like she did? Why was she trying to get away from the guy? Let's say it was Jagger. Why was she trying to get away from him? He would come around to one side, she would go to the other side. Some people will argue, well, they were trying to hide the body in the back. Come on, people. I mean, even they aren't this stupid. You have a dead body in the back. You have a disabled vehicle that you may have to tow. You really think that even the dumbest moron wouldn't be dumb enough to call a service driver knowing that the car could be towed with the dead body in the back? It's just not going to happen. Now, if they were going to do anything with the body, they'd have gone and hit it in the woods, which I think may have been what happened. I think that Kiely's car and her body were hidden and then put in at a later date, which is why they never found the vehicle with the initial searches. I find it interesting that Zaname, I believe her video of her going into the water with her kayak was made on August 18th. There's a lot of us who believe the vehicle was put in the water 19th or 20th. AWP found it on the 21st. So her car could have been hidden. There's a lot of places. There is a warehouse apparently in Hobart Mills that has a deep freeze. It could have been a reefer truck that they rolled it into and kept it. A lot of different things. So anyway, let's get back to, I'm chasing rabbit trails here, but I'm trying to give you the entire picture, and I'm thinking this out as I'm going along. Okay, so there's other thoughts that are rolling into my head concerning this, but let's just say that Nick was wrong. Let's say it wasn't Kiely. that it was Sammy or Kate. Now, Kate does look a little bit more like Kiely, but she doesn't look quite like Kiely. I could tell the difference very well. But you also have to remember Nick was saying, like his interview with Squirrel Girl was quite a while after the incident. And so him saying that, yeah, I'm 100% sure it was Kiely. You know how it is. Like I said before, you meet somebody and you think you remember how they looked, and then you see them again, and they look different than you remember them. I've had that happen many times. And so there's always the possibility that he saw somebody else but was convinced it was Kiely. However, the girl's actions, trying to get away from the guy, trying to get over by Nick, away from the guy, and then he come over there and she go the other side. From my own experience in law enforcement, that indicates that it was Kiely. That she was scared, trying to somehow signal Nick without being overly obvious and putting them in danger. So that's motive number one, is that was an accident, that she and Sammy got into a fight. Kiely got injured, ended up dead. They stuck the car in the water. To be honest with you, I have a really hard time with that, although there is some of it that makes sense, but not total sense. All right, so that is motive number one. All right, motive number two. To me, this is one of the more feasible ones, even though it might be one of the most unbelievable if it is true. And that is, Kiely had filed for emancipation. She was sick of Lindsay, sick of being there. She graduated early from high school so she could get the hell out of there. We've gone over her song, how she talks about something happening twice a year that made her feel so terrible that she wanted to slit her wrists. She wanted out of there. Now, if some of the things had been going on that we believe may have been going on, I guarantee you Lindsay wouldn't want her leaving the nest and going out and having the freedom to rat on her. Because I believe they were involved in some very occultic and satanic things. That being the case, it makes you wonder if maybe Lindsay panicked, realized Kiely's filed for emancipation, she's going to be out from under my thumb, I cannot control her anymore, she's going to be out on her own. What is she going to be telling people? My own, and this is just my own personal opinion, people. I'm not accusing anybody of anything. But my own personal opinion is Lindsay never intended for Kiely to leave. She had been grooming her. According to Kiely's song, it really comes across, to me anyway, you may have a different opinion, and that's fine. But it comes across to me is that she was pimping her out. They had some strange groups visit the lodge. There's a lot of strange things that went on at the lodge there. They were involved with some other groups that I know for a fact groom paganistic kids, or groom them for paganism and occultism. Look at the things that were on the table at Kiely's Celebration of Life. Tarot cards, other emblems of Wicca, of other occult Satru practices that they're into. People, let me tell you, when people get deep into Satanism and paganism and that type of thing, they are capable of anything. I know that most of us live in our own little shell, our own little bubble. And we're protected, especially if you live like in a rural area, that there's not a lot that goes on. Like where I live. But I've been in other areas and lived in cities and have been exposed to it. We live in our little bubble and we don't think like things like this could happen. We can't imagine a mother pimping their daughter out. We can't imagine recruiting them into occult practices. We can't imagine them having them killed to save their own hide. But to me, that's motive number 2. Plus, I also think that there's a financial motive. Look how quickly, when Kiely went missing, look how quickly they put up the reward money. And then look how quickly it went from $5,000 to $150,000 as the goal. Now, if that doesn't come across to you as a money grab, nothing does. I mean, Kiely had only been missing about, they filed the report Saturday at 5 p.m. By noon the next day, they already had the GoFundMe set up, bring Kiely home, $5,000. By 7 that same evening, they'd increased it to 10. I mean, Kiely had barely been missing for 24 hours, or 24 hours since the report was filed. That's just unheard of. I mean, generally, you don't even put out a reward until, at least a few days, and they haven't come up with anything. Didn't even give them a chance to search. And they already had the money grab going. And then it went from, $10,000 to $15,000, $25,000, then up, $75,000. Then the goal hit $150,000, which was what is owed on the lodge, as I understand. And also, the GoFundMe was set up by a real estate agent, a friend of Lindsay's. Interesting, isn't it? So this has money grab all over. And also, Lindsay set up funds in Venmo and other accounts, just raking in the dough, basically taking advantage of Kiely's death to make a lot of money. Now, to me, that says money grab. That doesn't say, I care about my daughter. It says that she knew already Kiely's fate. She already knew what happened to her. And that is why, I believe, as I've said before. And so a lot of this is going to be redundant to you, but a lot of you have not heard this. So this is for you. I believe that's why she got so mad when she heard that AWP was coming. Now, she claimed it was because it was going to be a spectacle. And I'm sure that is part of it, because she knew with AWP coming that this was going to be widespread news. I think originally they planned to just keep it in their little circle over there where they could keep it silent, like so many other deaths over there that never even hit the news. I mean, go back and look at that documentary, Everyone Counts. How many of those have you hear about on the news? And I think Kiely was just going to be another one of those. But AWP was called in, and all of a sudden, Lindsay's plan, if that was her plan, was going to be thwarted. Because all of a sudden, number one, she knew where Kiely was. She knew where her vehicle was. And so she knew AWP was going to find it. And so that pissed her off. Also, she knew that Kiely's case was going to be all over YouTube and probably spread to national news, which it did. And that pissed her off. And so she was extremely upset with AWP coming in. And of course, everybody, and what gets me too, here's where Jagger was doing the same thing. Disrespecting AWP, calling them a bunch of glory hounds or whatever it was he put it. Interesting that he and Lindsay are both saying the same things about AWP. Like I said, read between the lines. You can't tell me Jagger wasn't involved in this. No way. So, Lindsay's little plan hit a speed bump, but it didn't derail it. She still ended up with like $63,000 just from the GoFundMe, which she fought really hard to get. We tried. We filed a petition to get it to where it's supposed to go, but it's obvious the fact that she kept the money. It's obvious that she did not set up that GoFundMe as a reward, because 2 and 2 equals 4, people. If she set that up as a reward, she'd have given that money to AWP. It didn't matter who found her, whether it was a kid in a kayak or AWP or whoever. If it's set up as a reward, the reward should go to the people who found her. Plain and simple. The fact that she had no intention of giving that money to whoever found her, regardless of who it was, to me, completely proves it was a money grab. So she ended up making a load of money off of it and no longer had to worry about Kiely going off and telling other people about the goings-on at Lost Trail Lodge. Now, to me, this motive makes much more sense, at least in my brain, makes much more sense than the first scenario. I've always had a hard time believing it was an accident. I don't have a hard time believing that Kiely and Sammy got in a fight, but I don't know if that's what led to Kiely's demise. And to be honest with you, this is the only motive that makes total sense to me. Other than it being an accidental as a result of a fight, which I don't believe it was, because I still honestly believe that Nick saw Kiely that next day. But Lindsay could not handle Kiely leaving the nest and being out there free to tell all of the tales of all the crap that she'd endured. I mean, can you imagine? If indeed she had been pimping Kiely out and Kiely went to the authorities and told them about it, Lindsay'd be in jail. She'd be in prison. She should already be in jail just for the other things. Child endangerment, contributing, all those other things she should be in jail for. There's other things she could be charged with too. Total negligence. Didn't even wait up for her. Well, of course not, because she already knew what was going to happen. So, why go out of my way? But so far, this is the motive that makes the most sense to me. I'm going to go over a couple of others too. But so far, in my own mind, this is the one that makes the most sense. All right, the next motive is one that I came up with not too long into Kiely's case. And that is that Kiely was pregnant by the guy she was dating, very prominent family, the Hambrecks, and that they couldn't afford. I mean, here Nate was about ready to go to college, and I'm sure they had grandiose plans for him. You know, this is a very prominent, prestigious family. They had all these plans for him, and all of a sudden he was going to be stuck with a pregnant girl. At first, when I first thought about this one made the most sense to me. The more I have thought about it, there's just too many variables. Okay, because let's say he had gotten Kiely pregnant. Well, people say, well, just have an abortion. You're talking about a very small area, people. Everybody knows everybody's business. Everybody knows what goes on. So even if she would have had an abortion, they'd be saying, hey, did you hear that Nate got Kiely pregnant and she ended up having an abortion? They'd get around. No matter how much, with the HIPAA laws and all that stuff, and they'd keep things silent, it'd get around. It would get around. Somebody would know about it. Somebody would tell somebody else, and you know good and well, people love to gossip. So even if she did have an abortion, you're still looking at a blight on the family. You don't understand. There's a lot of information that I haven't released. But let me just say that this family basically runs everything over there. One of several. But they are the preeminent family. As one guy said in a comment, there's only one family that has the power to control the cops, control the narrative, and cover all this up. But I have to question whether that would also entail killing her. Would they kill her just to cover it up? Well, knowing the things that I know, knowing what they're into, and people, you have to understand that most of the prominent families over there are into Satanism. That has been shown me. That is factual. Some of them are very high ranking. People will go to great lengths to protect their reputation, especially if there's money involved. You've got a young man who has his whole life ahead of him, is going to be going to college, who knows, may get into politics, stupidly. But you have to think of it, excuse me, from their perspective. And their perspective would be, we can't afford a blight on this family. Because let's say that Nate was to get into politics and get into some prominent position. You know how people love to dig up dirt. And all of a sudden, he becomes prominent and somebody digs up something from the past, say, hey, didn't you get a girl pregnant? She had an abortion, or blah, blah, blah. And so depending on their thinking process, this could be a motive. I think it's less likely than the previous one. But it's something, when you're investigating something, you have to look at everything. And so even though you might find it a little far-fetched, it's still something that has to be considered. Was she killed because she was pregnant and that had to be covered up? and there's all sorts of arguments. I can hear people now saying, well, she could have done this. She could have gone to Mexico and had an abortion. She could have done it. Yes, all of those things are true. But like I said, somebody is going to find out. And somebody's going to tell somebody else. And they're going to tell somebody else. And pretty soon, it's going to be public. Regardless of what they did. The only scenario to keep things totally quiet is just to snuff Kiely. That way, she doesn't talk. And of course, the people who did it are definitely not going to talk because they don't want to go to jail. And you notice also, too, that one of the things that we heard in the beginning was that the parents were telling the kids not to talk, which I think is atrocious. And you people over there who told your kids not to talk, you suck. You are scum. You would do that. You have a young girl who died, and you have information that could lead to her killers, and you tell your kids to shut up. You're pathetic. You're absolutely pathetic. And guess what? Like they say, karma's a bitch. Yeah, well, this bitch is going to come back and bite you in the ass one of these days. Now, I don't believe in karma because I'm not from that mentality. I'm from more of a biblical perspective. But there is the same thing in the Bible. It's called the law of sowing and reaping. It says, behold, God is not mocked. Whatever a man sows, that shall he also reap. So guess what? Same difference. It's still going to come back and bite you in the ass. So you better keep that in mind. It will. But I don't know what your thoughts on this are, but it's just, like I said, I think it's less feasible than the previous theory, but still something that has to be considered. Okay, and this is the final theory. Sorry, I just bumped my table. This is the final theory that I'm going to come up with today. I tried to think of some others. I had some others in my head earlier, but I can't think what they are. So this video is already going to be long enough. So if I think of any more, I'll do a second video. But the only other motive that I can think of is that Kiely was trafficked. Now, if Kiely was trafficked, and let me tell you, there's a big network of people over there who are involved in trafficking. And some of these prominent families, they're involved in it. They're involved with these other networks. They're involved with the cartels. Reno is one of the biggest trafficking hubs in the United States. And it's only like a little over half hour or whatever it is from Truckee. That whole area over there is a big trafficking area. You have very prominent people, very rich people. And that's one of the ways they've gotten rich, is through trafficking. And as I said earlier, there's different kinds of trafficking. Trafficking just in this country alone has become a multi-billion-dollar business. Now, you don't become a billion-dollar business unless you have lots of people to traffic. Now, here's the deal. It used to be drug trafficking was the big thing, like out of Mexico. That was what most of your trafficking entailed, was drugs. Bringing drugs across the border, blah, blah, blah. But what they found, and I don't know how recently most of this is, maybe like 20, 30 years, but especially in the last 10 years, it has increased exponentially. They have found that they can make a lot more money from trafficking people than trafficking drugs. Which, you know, think about it, it's common sense. I mean, you traffic a bunch of drugs across the border, it's one-time use. And you have to keep supplying, creating more. One-time use. You traffic fentanyl pills across the border, one-time use. However, on the other hand, if you traffic people, multiple uses. You kidnap one girl, take her down to Mexico, or wherever it is that you send her. I mean, but a lot of them aren't even sent to Mexico. A lot of them are trafficked right within California, Arizona, Nevada, and in other states as well. But let's say you kidnap a girl and you send her to Mexico. You get paid for every time she has a client. And as far as trafficking goes, the younger the better, because you have longer time use. Because once they reach a certain age, they're not going to be as popular as the younger ones. That's just the way it is. Also, you get paid more if they're the young, innocent type. Like, if you were to find a virgin, there's multiple uses for them. A lot of them are sold for sacrifice. I know that sounds horrible, but it happens, people. It happens a lot. And you get a high price for them. You traffic, you find out somebody's a virgin, you kidnap them and traffic them and sell them, you can make a mint. Now, of course, even like sex trafficking, you can charge the first time, but after that, you know, of course, you can still claim she's a virgin, you know, or whatever. But let's just say the young, innocent types, the pure-looking ones, they charge a pretty penny for those. You look at Kiely, 16, almost 17. Slender, pretty. She'd bring a very good price on the market. Now, if they're involved with the cartel, or even if they aren't involved with the cartel, they're involved with these other networks, trust me, they wouldn't have any problem finding a body to put in Kiely's car. No problem at all. Because that original autopsy was not her. I'm sorry. Now, it was later amended, and they had addendums added to it, and of course it had, you know, information like Kiely's, you know, thing on her wrist or whatever, you know. But that wasn't in the original report. The original report, it said no scars, marks, or tattoos. The original report said didn't have a doctor, didn't have a dentist. Original report had a lot of stuff that was incorrect. That was definitely not her. And then later, once they found out, oh man, we really screwed up. She does have scars. She does have marks. She does have a surgical scar. She does have dental work. And so they amended it. They added addendums to the autopsy report to make it look more authentic. But the original one, no, wasn't her. You can't convince me that it was Kiely in that vehicle. I'm not saying it couldn't be. Yes, it could be. It could have been her in there. But then you have to explain the original autopsy. That's the problem. See, I had no problem accepting it was Kiely in the car until they came out with that autopsy report, as I said earlier. And once they came out with that autopsy report, I'm like, there's something rotten in Denmark. Or wherever. So it is a possibility, and this is another scenario that makes perfect sense to me. Just like the second scenario. There's a motive. There's a pure, legit motive that makes sense. And it could be that Kiely was trafficked. Now, the information that I got from one of my sources who is connected said that Kiely was trafficked by the cartel and then later killed, although that had not been confirmed. But that was the information that, through the grapevine of people who have intel, said that she was trafficked. And also said that she was later killed. Now, I can understand her being trafficked. I can't understand her being killed. There would be no reason to unless she was just such a problem that they didn't feel like dealing with her anymore. Because if she was trafficked, she'd bring them income in for a long, long time. So to be honest with you, I don't know whether to believe the report. I do know that it's out there from people in the intel world that she was trafficked. But even the people who gave the report said that they weren't sure about her being killed. They had heard that, but wasn't confirmed. But they were very adamant about her being trafficked. And so I believe it's one of two scenarios. I believe that Lindsay did not want her leaving. And it could very well be that Lindsay was involved in her being trafficked as well. The information that I have also from these same intel people, and again, people, this is not confirmed. I'm just the messenger boy. I'm just telling you this is what I've heard or what I've been told. They said that Lindsay got paid a pretty penny, that she was rewarded very well financially. So either way, whether it was Kiely was killed or whether she was trafficked, she was out of the way and would not be in a position to tell anybody anything that, who mattered. So what she tells the people who are trafficking her that her mom pimped her out, they're like, yeah, whatever. I would too. So yeah, either way, she'd been taken care of. So anyway, in conclusion to all this, what I'm trying to say in all this is this. If we really want to find out what happened to Kiely, we have to understand the motive. Why would somebody want her to die? There has to be a motive that makes sense. And to me, either Lindsay tried to get rid of her to keep her from ratting on her, and getting her in trouble. Although, that's what makes me think that she never intended for Kiely to ever leave the nest. Because why would you do all these things knowing that when she left, she could land you in prison? So I think that she determined a long time ago that Kiely was never going to leave. Or if she did, it was not going to be voluntary. That rather she was going to be trafficked. Those are the only things that make sense to me. So let me know your thoughts on this. You may agree with me, you may not. Or you may have other ideas that, we can look into. But these are just the things, just my experience investigating crimes and trying to figure out what happened and developing a motive for what happened. Because to me, you cannot find out what happened unless you develop the motive first. And once you understand the motive, then everything else tends to fall into place. And so that's my thoughts on it. Let me know what you think. What is what I'm saying making sense? Do you have any other thoughts? Any other? And make sure, think them through, people. People a lot of times put comments and say, "Well, I think this." Well, yeah, why? Why do you think that? Are you just thinking emotionally? Because this is what I think. No, have some reasoning for what you're thinking, okay? Because I get a lot of comments, it's obvious people not thinking things through. So think it through. Really go over it and say, okay, does this make sense in my head? And don't just make a comment because you got emotional over something I said. Okay, that's all I ask, is just make sense. Because I get, a lot of my comments, most of my comments are good, but I get some that people like make, blah, 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 and it's like, huh? What the hell are you thinking? That doesn't make any sense at all. So, anyway, think about what I've said, kind of ruminate over it. Tell me what you think makes sense. Okie dokie? Alrighty. Talk to you later.